Hey everyone, Aaron here. Welcome back to the Anime Talk, the show where I really wish I could pick my own backgrounds because I swear to God, that is probably the worst background I think I've ever used for the Anime Talk. I actually got that offline. I think that's from Watamote. Watamote? I think that's the series it's called. If I'm wrong about that, I apologize in advance. But yeah, that is a horrible background. Oh God, it's so terrible. Anyways, though, so what do you got? Probably from the title, you already know what I'm going to talk about today. But I figured I'd be talking about why is it a good idea to start off with lighter novels if you're not a huge fan of reading. Now, being that I am probably one of the biggest nerds you will ever meet in life, I think I am. I think I am a nerd and a geek in many ways. Both those go against me. I used to spend my life essentially in the library. Um, most mostly through school. If you haven't watched a lot of my videos where I talk to myself, most of the times in school, I actually was always in the library. I used to actually avoid going to the cafeteria, not because I used to per se not want to eat or anything like that. More so because I used to have a lot of issues over at my first school. I used to avoid going to cafeteria. Excuse me. I used to go to the library, and that was my treat during free time or recess or lunchtime, whatever you want to call it. So I would go there, and I would just find a book. I'd go to like the newest section because our library in my school was actually pretty cool. It actually had a new section and it was constantly updated because the librarians really cared about the library itself. So she would actually update the section with new books that came out. I'd like find a new book there. I'd start reading it, and if I didn't finish it there, I'd take it out. Seeing that in middle school up to junior high, up to like my first year of high school, I read at an alarming, super fast rate. I used to most of the time, within an hour or an hour and a half, I used to be able to finish a book that was around 250 pages. If it was anything more, it'd take me like maybe 3 hours. But I used to be able to finish books really fast. Even now, I finish books. If it's like 200 pages, I can finish that maybe 2 hours. Around that, maybe 2 hours and a half. But for me, reading has always been a big, huge part of my life. That's what I'm trying to get at. I've always loved books. I've always loved getting lost in the kind of sensations of a fantasy world or a kind of crime thriller or a drama or something like that. I've loved getting lost in those worlds. It's a great escape. It's a great safe escape in a lot of ways to get away, just to see a different side of the world. And I think broadening your horizons in many ways, because if you read books, you actually are opening yourself to learning about things that you might not understood. It's not like you always take everything that a book says as truth, because of course a lot of books are fiction. But there are a lot of things that you may not have understood, and it might further you actually wanted to understand about that, like culture wise and stuff like that. And I think one of the biggest things for me was, yeah, books were always good for that. I always wanted to learn more or learn about some kind of different culture or something, and reading a book did that for me. Now, I've talked to a lot of people about maybe 75%, maybe 80% of my friends who, are really good friends, hate reading. And I don't give them shit. They always look at me, going, I don't know how you read so much, man. And I'm like, oh, I love reading. But the thing is that they hate reading. And I've always said, what do you like to do? And they go, well, a lot of them do love anime and they love video games, stuff like that. I went, have you ever tried reading a light novel? And a lot of them don't know what light novels are. So really fast, in case you don't know what a light novel is, and hey, listen, you might not know. I mean, I'm not saying that most of you probably do know what light novels are, but in case you don't, a light novel is actually a Japanese book that is a novel series, of course, but it's usually for an anime novel series or just anime type stories. But it's not a huge book or a huge novel. It's actually only usually around 180 pages to 200. Like I think 50 is the most I've ever seen a light novel. And it has illustrations here and there just to show off some imagery once in a while. But it's essentially what I consider a great kind of beginner series for people who don't read books very much and want to find a way to get into books. So if you're one of those people, I would say definitely read light novels. My recommendations for you are things like Sword Art Online. If you really are a huge fan of Sword Art Online already as it is, reading an SAO light novel series might actually really turn you on to reading because it's a very good book. It's actually what I consider SAO. I consider the light novel series superior to the anime. I know people always go, "What? How could you?" The anime I've never been a huge fan of. I like some of the anime. Don't get me wrong. I love the animation, the fight scenes, and stuff like that. But I've never liked the storytelling in it. And the light novel series does a way better job of explaining what's going on, explaining more points of view, making you feel more invested in the world of SAO to the point that the anime cannot do that. Visually, it's stunning, but I think reading it makes a bigger visual than even the anime could ever try to hope to do. So I always say, if you find something that you actually like, because a lot of anime do have light novel series. Excel World has a light novel series. If you like a certain magical index that has a light novel series, both the regular one and also Railgun. There is, I believe, I'm looking at my list of things. There are kind of one shots of things like Rising of the Shield Hero. That's a new series that came out recently. That's not bad. I'm starting that. And A Melancholy for Rumu Suzumiya. Is it wrong to pick up a dungeon? Is it wrong to pick up a girl in the dungeon? Listen, there are a lot of different books that are actually, those are light novels that are based off of very popular anime. And, except for the Rising of the Shield Hero, that one's, I don't think, an anime yet. If it is, I need to go watch that because that's awesome. But if not, I don't think it is. I think it's just a light novel series right now at the moment. But I'll tell you, those are perfect gateways into reading. I think that if you, read those series, you might find that you actually enjoy reading. And you'll actually, I think, one thing that I notice from people who start light novel series is that they start venturing into like bigger novels. You'll never read things like, I think, the older stuff like Catcher in the Rye or A Tale of Two Cities or Dante's Inferno. I don't think you'll ever go into those per se, because I mean those are books that I think you have to be very invested in reading already to read those books. But like Edgar Allan Poe, anything about Ernest Hemingway, stuff like that. But if you want to get into reading, and if you really hate reading so much, start with a light novel. I think that is the perfect gateway into it, because you read a light novel, it's short, it's sweet. Even a person who struggles to read something that takes a long time for them to read will find that they read a light novel series pretty fast. Most light novel series, even if you're a slow reader, I'm not going into my realm, I'm saying if you're really slow at reading, will take you several weeks. And most novels take people months. A light novel, I think, if you really read slow, at best you'll be done with it maybe in a month. You probably will be, realistically. And I think that is really cool, because I think that lets people venture into a world that they're not familiar with or unfamiliar with, and actually start getting into light novels, and more so getting into regular novels, and then you start reading into stuff that's bigger. I think that's a good way of doing it. Now, my opinions are that, it's nothing wrong if you don't read. I wish more people read. I think that one of the biggest issues with our society nowadays is reading is not as fundamentally as, I think, approachable as it used to be. I think in the older days, and the older days, I make it like I'm old, I'm not that old, but in the older time of my generation at least, reading was a kind of particular thing you needed to do for school, you needed to do outside of it. I think that's what encouraged people to kind of get into books. But I think it was also more forced down your throat a little bit sometimes, which caused a lot of people that I know my age did not want to read books because of it. But I think that nowadays it's almost like completely a unadvisable or not needed thing. And I noticed in college one of these days, I'm not going to say exactly who said this in my college class, but there were several people that were asked if they read any books recently, and none of them except for me raised my hand. I was like, I'm on my 4th book of the month, and everyone's like looking at me like, what? He's on his 4th book. What the hell is he doing? How does he have to? And I'm like, that's for me. That's kind of slow. I usually plow through maybe 5 or 6 books in a month. Last month was busy. I was busy with a lot of stuff, so I didn't get to do that many books in 1 month. But honestly, to me, it's like, you're in college now. You should be reading a little more. But even more so, it's then, the scary part is I think books have helped people explore into a world that they're not familiar with, like I said before. But it also has helped them gauge, I think, more experiences out of life. I know that sounds kind of weird, right? But I would love if people read more, just because I think when you read more, it really does something where you then will see the world slightly differently, if that makes any sense. So I would highly suggest, if you're not a huge avid fan of reading, which is, listen, again, not a big deal, read a light novel series. Start with SAO, or start with, A Melancholy for Rumu Suzumiya. Start with one of those things, because those are very simple books to read. They're very short. And you'll find, I think, in maybe a year of reading light novels, you'll actually really dig reading. And you'll start going on. Maybe you'll start reading visual novels. I think visual novels are, to me at least, a form of reading. And you go to visual novels, and maybe you go to regular novels at one point. Definitely check that out, though. I think you should check out some visual novels if you really want some. If you're one of those people that want to read and have not found a way to get into books yet. Anyways, I hope this was an interesting topic for you guys. I was thinking that I just wanted to talk about this because I had a class that this kind of came up in, and I was talking about this and all that. So I want to talk to you guys about this today. Anyways, guys, this should be coming out during the week. If not, have a great weekend. If it is coming out during the week, have a great week as always. Please like, comment, subscribe. Helps me out a lot. Makes shows me some love. And I'll talk to you all later. Have a blessed day, really, guys. Bye bye.